Hi, welcome to our event, Spark Your Balance Naturally. My name is Radka Gimerova. I'm a health and life coach and an aromatherapist, and I'm very happy to show you around the wonderful experts to really speak about the holistic strategies, how to take care of ourselves, to balance our mind, and then just shine from within. And now I would like to welcome Dr. Ruth C. White amongst us. Hello, Ruth.
Hi, Radka. How are you?
I'm fine, thank
We're like
you.
thousands of miles away.
Yeah, I would say the internet connection is just lovely, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, from the beginning, I would really like to introduce you as someone who is absolutely passionate about improving mental health and well-being amongst individuals and communities. And I just love how you dedicated your work into the mental well-being and
Mm-hmm.
distressing our lives and ourselves.
Yes.
And you are
Yes.
also the professor at the university. And I know that you are a wonderful author of several books. And the one of them is Stress Management Workbook and
Mm-hmm.
maybe Everyday Stress Relief that we might touch a
Yes.
little bit for today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so thank you very much for joining us, Ruth. And
Thank you
maybe
for
I would
having
just,
me.
yeah, I would just maybe like to ask from the beginning, as you are an expert for the stress management or stress relief, how would you
Mm-hmm.
say that this influences our lives? And what can we do to restore our balance in mind?
Well, I think the issue, especially, I mean, Europe is a little bit different, but in the United States, people are so, their identity is attached to work. And there's a work culture that just kind of says the more you work, the better. You know, people kind of brag about how much they work. I was visiting my sister here in New Jersey, and my best friend lives in New York City. And last weekend, we were supposed to hang out. And Friday evening, he was working late. Saturday morning, his boss contacted him. Sunday morning, his boss contacted
Oh,
him,
well,
right? And so, I mean, work comes before friendship because, you can't lose your job because you want to hang out with your friends and have brunch. But it just said to me, it's like even your weekend where you would normally be taking time to hang out with your friends and relax and just sort of, you know, restore yourself, because I think people forget that. I always say you can't pour from an empty cup, right? At some point, you have to be filling in that cup, and you just can't keep. I mean, not even machines do that, right? Cars, you have to maintain a car. Your house, you have to maintain a house. You always have to, your pets, you take care of them. Like, why wouldn't you take care of yourself in the same way? So I think what has happened is that why I think people are focusing more on balance, and why people are, working remotely even before COVID and more asking for more flex time, is because I think we begin to question how much sacrifice
mm-hmm.
is healthy, right? So yes, hard work is important, and you want to succeed, and you want to, achieve your goals and your objectives, but the sacrificing of your health and your mental well-being, right? Because you still have to take care of it. So I tell people, I'm like, okay, so you're working all the time, so now you maybe drink a little more, or you're gonna smoke a little more, or maybe you're so stressed out now you have to take Xanax, or like you're trying to find all these ways to compensate for not taking care of yourself in the first place. And the impact of stress on our bodies is such that, yes, stress can also be positive. Like, before you start this, right, you have a little bit of anxiety and a little bit of stress,
Yeah.
but it makes you perform better. But at the same time, like, so stress can be a demanding positive thing. But if you have chronic stress, it's toxic to our bodies, right? And this is not a new agey thing. This is actual science, right? Our pancreas, so we're more likely to be obese, we're more likely to have diabetes. It impacts our cardiovascular health, so people are more likely to have heart disease and
Mm-hmm.
all these other things, Alzheimer's, dementia, all these things are exacerbated by stress, and a lot of stomach distress,
Mm-hmm.
so things like irritable bowel syndrome and acid reflux, all of these things are stress related. So I often say to people, the reason why I think I got really passionate about stress was that the more research I did on mental health and well-being, the more I was reading more and more in all the, you know, from the neuroscience to psychology to psychiatry to whatever, is how much stress can be toxic to our bodies. And I remember I was talking to my primary care physician and he said something and I was shocked. Stress is the number one reason people see their doctor. Like aside from your going every, you know, year to see your doctor, stress related conditions are the number one reason people go to see their doctor. So if you could take care of that, you're taking care of so much. It's the whole mind and body. And I know you do aromatherapy, right? So there's some things, for example, I tell people, you know, one of the things that is stressful, for example, if you live in a big city and there's no green space and, you know, the smells of a city are not particularly relaxing, right?
Totally agree.
Yes, you're not smelling green grass and, you know, the fresh air and all of that. You're smelling garbage and all the different sort of, so even from that perspective, and then what you're seeing, right? So you're not looking out on a gorgeous view, right? You're looking out on concrete. Generally in a city, you're looking out your window and you're looking at another wall, right? And that's not relaxing. And of course, people know this, right? Which is why people like to drive to the country and they like to take hikes, etc., because that is a way to counteract the stress of living, you know, in a lot of concrete without a lot of space and time. Because the other thing is, even if you have the green space, whatever, if you don't have the time to enjoy it, then, you know, it's just one more thing on your to-do list, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
which is annoying again, right?
Exactly. So that like becomes one more thing. I have to do this thing. It's just not integrated into our lives.
Yeah, correct. I totally resonate with your words because I definitely see and feel that the stress is influencing our bodies and our minds really the most from the regular diseases and everything that we have around around the world in general. And my question is, what would you say are the good strategies that we can actually implement to maybe our daily routines to actually prevent the situations like that?
Well, I always go back to breath, right? And, you know, I always say one of the most important things you can do is breathe deeply and slowly, right? Because, and that's why sometimes when people are feeling stressed, you know, they breathe really shallow and they don't get a lot of oxygen. And if you're slowing your breath, you're slowing down. You know, you can't breathe slowly and move fast, right? It's just, it's a way of being aware, you know, so some people call it mindfulness, right? Where the more you're aware of yourself and like what you're feeling and thinking. So if you find yourself, you know, rushing about, you can say, okay, wait, let me slow down. Because the other thing I think is that we give importance to everything and we don't like prioritize and go, well, you know what? It's okay if my dishes are not washed, if I'm tired and I just want to sit down and have a cup of chamomile tea, right? That's good. And I also tell people that things like exercise, right? Exercise gives you time. Like people say, well, I don't have time to exercise. And I say, well, exercise actually gives you time because if you take, say, 40 minutes to exercise, you're going to be more alert. You're going to be happier. You're going to be more effective at work. You're going to be more creative. You're going to focus more, concentrate more. Your memory is sharper. So, you know, when my friends would say, well, I don't have time, I said, well, actually, if you do this, your work will actually be better. So I think exercise is also a great way of reducing stress. It's a place to kind of blow off steam, but it also takes care of your body in a way that if you get stressed, your body knows how to take care of itself. And it's something that you do for yourself. And so if you have it as part of your routine, at least I often say for some people who like to check off, you know, things off their list, exercise in the morning is a great thing because you've started your day having accomplished something every day, right? So you started out and you're in a positive space. And the research has shown, especially that if you do exercise outside, it has a lot of mental health benefits that even inside doesn't do. So, you know, breath, I think exercise. I also think connection, you know, because a lot of times too, people will say, well, I don't have time for my friends or my family, or, you know, I'm really busy, I haven't talked. But human beings are social creatures.
That's true.
And a lot of the stress that we often feel is because we can't connect to people that we love and we care about, which is, you know, the pandemic has been really hard for people around that issue. For example, for me, I live thousands of miles away from both of my sisters and my parents and my daughter. So, and they're all in different places, and I wasn't able to see people. And for a while I was like, you know, Zoom and FaceTime is not the same thing, you know, as, you know, waking up in the same house with somebody you love and care about. So I think connection, you know, is also really important for people. I also think that taking time to just sit still. I know that for a lot of people, they're just like, I have friends who say, well, I can't sit still. You know, I always have to be moving. And I say, well, that's part of why you're stressed out. Like, even if it's 15 minutes at the end of a day, the middle of the day, you know, the beginning of the day, you just literally just sit, I don't know, some juice, some water, tea, or just sitting, close your eyes and just like let go. You know, again, some people do meditation, but not everybody wants to meditate. So whether or not you meditate, just taking 15 minutes to just be. That's it. You're not doing anything. You're not talking to anybody. You're not watching anything. You're not on your phone. Just sit for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And not, you know, or stand, because right now we're sitting a lot. We're sitting too
even
much.
Better,
right?
So stand for 15 minutes and just be.
Stand for 15 minutes, whatever. Yeah, just be, just sit still, you know. I love going to a park and just sitting on a bench. And I kind of get lost, you know. You just sit there, maybe you watch little kids play, or you watch a leaf fall off a tree, whatever it is, you're just being still. It also opens up the mind for creativity, but it's just, we have to restore. You can't just do. Your body needs time to like,
relax, just step back somehow, I feel.
Yes.
I already hear a couple of voices over there from people that, okay, how do you do that if your mind is completely full of some thoughts?
Yes. Well, you know, I'm not a mindfulness expert or a meditation expert. And I know that for a lot of people, stilling the mind is hard, but it takes practice. It's like anything else, right? So the first time you're probably going to sit there for 15 minutes and think about, did I pay my bills? You know, what's the next thing I have to do when I'm done with this 15 minutes? But the more you do it, and the more you start to be able to, why I like to do it in nature is because I become aware of things that I normally don't pay attention to, right? And so, you know, like now it's fall, you can literally sit and watch a leaf fall. I know my friends tell me like, what? But I'm like, if you focus on watching, just looking at the trees and the grass and smelling, and you're basically focusing on things that are not related to your everyday life. Right. And sometimes for me, why it's better to go outside is because inside your house or your office, there are too many things, you know, like you're thinking of your chores and so when you go outside, it's very contemplative. It's why I like to hike, because I used to love hiking because nobody could reach me a lot of times. So, you know, it's perfect. Like, oh, well, I'm out of reach. So there's no phone. And so it's just me walking, you know, and it doesn't have to be strenuous. Like where I live in Oakland, there are redwood trees, and it's so quiet, you know, and it's like, there's no city noise, no cars, no sirens. It's just quiet, and you just go for a walk. Or like I say, just sit. And I just think we don't do enough of that. Right? We're not as connected to nature as we used to be. And I think that's why when people go on vacation, they want to be near nature. You know, they want to be near a beach or an ocean or whatever, because it's so relaxing. And so I tell people, if you can't do it on your own, force yourself to like just go outside, you know, take your chair. And sometimes I even tell people, even if it's bad weather outside, just put your chair by the window and watch the rain fall, watch the snow fall, whatever, you know, just be for a minute. And eventually, like you say, it's hard for people at first, but then you get better at it, you know. And mindfulness is becoming really popular even with executives now because they're realizing they actually perform better.
Yeah, absolutely. If you, yeah, you deserve like 15 minutes, like completely for yourself, the self-care, and then
Mm-hmm.
suddenly you shine. Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I really believe. Yeah, I have seen it many times, and I bet you too, because you are working with companies as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, I am. And in fact, you know, it's interesting because even before COVID, I was working with companies, but after COVID, people were really reaching out.
Mm-hmm.
And I began to realize just how stressed out people were, you
Yeah.
know, and my workshops tend to be very concrete because a lot of people don't want to hear me talk flaky, flaky, you know, they want to know, okay, here are
Yeah.
6 things I can do.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Yeah, that's what everyone wants.
You know, they want steps. And you know, you do aromatherapy, and I often tell people even that, like, a lot of people find it hard to sleep again because their minds are so busy,
Yeah.
and they sit there and they stare at the ceiling or they're thinking about things. But you know, chamomile or just lavender, like the smell of lavender, you put that on your pillow or you put that in your soap. Like I tell people, if you don't want to take a bath and relax, if you put lavender in your soap, it just literally relaxes. That's why
Oh,
now,
yeah.
yes, that's why now I think a lot of the baby products, like baby baths, now have lavender and chamomile in them because even big companies are realizing that their fragrances, etc. So that's the other thing sometimes I tell people to do is like, okay, you really, really think you're so, just put some scents or like a candle or something that gives you a scent that will just calm you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love it. I'll take you to my aromatherapy practice. I think you're pretty good.
Well, I love like I always liked candles, you know, because I also think that's calming. You
Yeah.
know, artificial light is not really calming, it's very stimulating. And so if you can turn off your lights, again, another way of just relaxing, light a candle, cup of tea, sit there, that's it. You know, you've relaxed without
Yeah.
having to go, okay, I need to go to yoga class to relax, you know?
Yeah, well, just quickly. And Ruth, what would you say regarding these strategies? You have mentioned before 15 minutes for maybe a breathe or just stay or
Mm-hmm,
sit still. Do you think
mm-hmm.
that 15 minutes a day would be something that actually makes us prevent some kind of a chronic stress?
Yes. Yes, because again, what we know is that like stress wears us down, right? So that's why if you're already stressed out and one more thing happens, that sometimes that's why people go, you know, they go to the doctor and they go, I can't function, I can't sleep,
Yeah.
um, indigestion, because
Mm-hmm.
if you're stressed, then the stress hormones are not really good for digesting your food because of how it impacts. I don't have to go through all that, but how it impacts your body and the processes, like your digestive processes. And so that's why a lot of times when people are stressed, they get a lot of indigestion, right? And so one of the things too that I often suggest to people is when you're eating a meal, just eat your meal. Don't
Mm-hmm.
eat your meal and watch TV. Don't eat your meal with the laptop next to you. Don't eat your lunch at the desk, right? Because also people are not conscious of what they're eating. They're just like,
Mm-hmm. Just putting it
yeah.
inside and that's it.
They're just putting it inside, you know, there's no enjoyment of it or anything. And so one of the things I've often said to people is even if all you do is you walk away from your desk
Mm-hmm.
to have your sandwich, I don't care where, you know, just go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's one way of giving yourself some time and space for something that's essential. Eating is essential, but especially in the United States, we have food on the go all the time, even before COVID, right? You drive to somewhere, you pick up the food, and you're eating it in the car. You
Yes,
know,
I'm
like
driving. Yeah.
you're not even yes, you're not even sitting down and enjoying what it is that you're eating. And so that's another place I think that people can say, well, you know what, I need food to live, right? This is something you have to do. If you don't
Yeah.
eat, you're going to die. But under what conditions am I going to eat, right? Because I always say, if you say you don't have enough time to eat, then you really need to check what you're doing, because, you know, food is important. And I often say to people, it's interesting when you shower, for example, right? You can't really do anything else in shower. right? You
Mm-hmm.
can't have the phone in the shower. You can't. So if you can take time to shower, then you can take time to eat.
Yeah, well, I like the metaphor.
It's like you can't do anything else in the shower because you'll get electrocuted, right? So people sing in the shower and they do all these things, and it's very restorative because water is very calming to
Mm-hmm.
humans, right? So that's one process. But I'm like, okay, food's really important, so just think of what you're putting in your body. One of the things that I found out, which I thought was really interesting, is so a lot of people feel stressed and they get kind of tired in the afternoon, right? So they're going full speed and they want to drink coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading somewhere that a lot of times it's from dehydration why we feel tired. And
Okay.
so the other thing to do to relax, and I know again, it's simple, but the science says it works, is to simply drink a glass of water slowly. Slowly, just sit, slowly drink a glass of water. Because the other thing we don't do is in this rush, people forget to hydrate.
Mm-hmm.
And that also impacts our digestive processes, our mental clarity. So it turns out if we're dehydrated, we're actually like our brains are not as alert.
Yeah.
So again, it's like I always tell people there's all these little things you can do.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do the big things. Some people are like, I can't take a vacation or whatever. But I'm like, if you build in these little things, either the one thing else that I really want to say is taking a break. So one of the things that's happened right now is people go from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting, right? So they have a meeting from 2 to 3 and one from 3 to 4. And I've been telling companies, for example, if you have a meeting from 2 to 2:50,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those 10 minutes are not going to change much. You get it done, but there's 10 minutes space between the next thing.
Yeah.
So you can get up, you can walk around. You don't have to feel like, oh, let me freeze my frame and run to the bathroom and come back and sit down and I can't miss anything. And, I have friends who take their laptop to the bathroom because
Oh my God.
it's like, oh, I'm in the middle of a meeting and I don't have time to, and it's just kind of like, what are we doing? And so structurally, if you're booking meetings, I tell people, give yourself like 10 minutes between a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And that 10 minutes you're not going to not get your work done.
Absolutely.
With 10 minutes less in a meeting, right? You'll just be more efficient because you have 10 minutes less, but it gives you 10 minutes break.
Mm-hmm.
to maybe just sit there, right? Or get up and stretch, because again, now that we're just sitting in front, looking at a tiny little green dot like we are right now, right? We're sitting for hours.
Mm-hmm.
Very bad for the body. Very, very bad for the body. So if you can have 10 minutes between meetings, you can get up, stretch, walk around, get the blood moving, right?
Drink water.
Drink water, because again, they've said, I don't know if you've heard this, but they say sitting is the new smoking.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Yes, because sitting is so bad for it to be so sedentary.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like if you're in an office, you walk around, you go to a meeting, you go to lunch, you go up the stairs, you go down the stairs. Now we wake up and 3 steps away, we sit in front of our laptop and we're there for 8 hours, 9 hours.
Wow, that's true. That's true. And yeah, it's wonderful that you just said it out loud, because we are not realizing these things, and it's very, very important. Yeah. And
I think that's the thing, what you just said, it's awareness, because sometimes I've done it, where I'm like, wait a minute, I sat down at 10, it's 2, where did 4 hours go? I've been sitting this whole time with this laptop and thinking I'm, being very productive. And then I'm like, this is crazy. Let me get up.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten up for 4 hours. This is nuts.
Yeah, you're correct. And I hear you saying that also once we are doing something, you have mentioned that with eating, that when we are eating, we should eat. And what's your opinion about the single tasking in general when we speak about the topic of the stress and single tasking?
Yes, that's actually a very interesting point. I think not a lot of people think about that. So I know some people, for example, my daughter, she doesn't like to do more than one thing at once. She finds it very stressful. So she wants to do one thing and then go on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually a mindfulness practice, right? So a lot of executives are trying to do that because what they find is, even though people think they're multitasking, the way the brain works, we really can't do more than one thing at once very well. Yeah. We can do it, but it's half attention, right? So I'm paying half of this and some attention, half of this, some attention, and the phone rings, but I'm really like looking at something else and I'm not really paying attention. And so sometimes that's necessary, you know, especially now women are home with kids and a kid's over there, but you still have to have the meeting. So you're not going to always be able to do that. But as much as possible to try to do that. So for example, I know people who write. So for example, I write and it's very hard to write and do something else. Writing requires a degree of presence and focus, right? And that's why people will say, you know, some people say, just write for 15 minutes every day. And why they say that is because once you start, you keep going, because it's really hard for you. You can't write and take care of a kid. Right? Let's take care of the kid and then figure out, okay, when can I block out time to write? So there are lots of things that we do, even like I said, with the shower, right? It's a single task. Yeah. Right? Some people shave. It's a single task. Right? You can't, it's the same thing like women putting on makeup. You can't really put on makeup and talk on it's focused. You're looking in a mirror, trying to do this. And so I think, as much as possible, if people can do that. So there've been a lot of articles written around email, for example, right? Because email can be very stressful. And there are all these strategies now that say, okay, you check the email in the morning for say 20 minutes or half an hour. You check email maybe in the afternoon, and then you check email before you go to bed. Because if you keep having the email there, that's again, another distraction. And so one of the things they've been finding out about working from home is that why a lot of people feel more productive is because they tend to be more focused. When you're at work, there are other people, there's noises, people are going by, there's this, somebody drops in your office, you know, there's all these distractions. And so as much as possible, if people can, like I said, we can't always, it's to find some time to, like you say, you know, single task instead of, you know, people are like, I can do 6 things at once. It's like, you really can't. You can't.
You just think
you are. Yeah, but you're not.
But you're wrong.
You're wrong. Exactly. And a lot, it's the same thing. The other thing, oh my goodness, like we haven't talked about this, is sleep, right?
Oh yeah.
I often have a hard time sleeping, but sleep is so important to restoration, right? And for us to wake up feeling clear-minded and alert and productive. And so that's another thing that people sacrifice because they say they're being very effective. And people are always shocked when I tell them that the science says that humans need between 7 and 9 hours. And people will go, 9? And I'm like, yes. I'm sorry, that's just what the science says your body needs. Now, a lot of people are running around on 4, and people will say, well, I'm very productive on 4. And I tell them, so imagine how you would be on 8.
Yeah.
You might still be so, but also not having sleep is really bad for your immune system. So I tell people during COVID, you want to have a strong immune system. So, you know, find a way to get to sleep every night. And there's a lot of strategies you can do around sleep, but, you know, and you're an aromatherapist, you know that there's some of those things that can get you to sleep. But sleep is really important for stress management, because if you're running on empty, you're going to get sick.
Yeah.
You know, even marathon runners. So when people, after they run a marathon or triathlon or whatever, they often find themselves get a cold afterwards. And that's because your immune system is just like, right? Yeah. So yeah. And athletes will tell you, for a high performance, you have to sleep. There's no athlete who would say, I'm going to go do my Olympic race on 3 hours sleep.
Yeah. Absolutely. They rather hire a sleep coach to actually be even
exactly
more effective.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's a smart decision.
Like, yes, it is. Like, a gymnast is not going to be tired and try and do a triple twist thing. They're not going to do it. They're going to hurt themselves. So I tell people, you know, if elite athletes think sleep is so important, maybe, you know, you in your little life
It's important too. Yeah, I would say
is
so. Yeah.
important too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ruth. It was so wonderful and informational. And I need to say that just from the last sentences, if there is only one thing to take away from this, I would say that you just cannot run on an empty cup.
Yes.
And I think it's so important. And do we find this in your book of stress management? Stress management workbook.
Yes, the Stretch Management workbook. Yeah, and it's available on Amazon. It's available wherever books are sold, and it just walks you through, you know, for people who want to say, okay, how do I find strategies that work for me? There's a lot of different strategies, so people can try what works for them. You know, some people don't. You know, some people, they're just things, they're tactile. They like to do things at like a squeezy ball or whatever. There are lots of different options, and it helps you write down and commit. Because I always tell people, it's one thing to say, yeah, I should, but if you commit and make a plan that every day at 7 p.m. I'm going to take 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, so when you plan for it, it'll happen.
Yeah, wonderful. I love it. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time, for all your wonderful insights.
Thank you, Radka.
Keep doing the wonderful work, and I just hope that we can meet some other time again.
Yes. When everything's all calm, maybe when I get to your end of the world, I'll come see you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.